What's up, world? This is Coach Gaffney, aka Coach Mental Health. I am here in my home. Man, I came back to the ISD, Crowley ISD, that is. I have the amazing pleasure to sit down with one of the gentlemen who makes this happen. If you have seen any kind of progress and growth in Crowley ISD, specifically in the athletic department, this is a man who is a part of that team that helps this make this happen. Coach, introduce yourself.
My name is Gary Collier. I'm an assistant athletic director in charge of facilities, and glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
I appreciate your time, Coach. I know that you are extremely busy getting things done. We were just talking about this ideal of all of the things that ADs have to do and making sure that the behind the scenes happen. So that's what we talk about at this podcast, is that we see the athlete on the field. We see the athlete on the court. We see the athlete in whatever sphere that they're in. But there's a whole circle of people and things that happen behind that athlete for them to show up the best that they can. So, Coach, let's get into it. So, why did you choose to be in this role as it relates to athletes' lives?
I think it was just at this point in my time, for the most part, I've been an athlete pretty much most of my life, and finishing, playing professional basketball, got into coaching for the longest. And I thought it was just time. It was something that I've been wanting to do. You talk with a lot of different coaches, and you want to find ways to help them out, and help the students out. You know, so this is that role where I feel like I could do even more.
So you talked about the ideal of being an athlete, Coach. Kind of run us down a little bit. Give us a few segments of your resume, as the kids say, your discography.
Okay, I'm from this area, from Fort Worth.
Okay.
Stop 6, Eastwood, and
yes,
so
sir.
Went to Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School. Had a really good career there. Went off to play college ball at University of Tulsa. I mean, in high school, I played for the legendary coach Robert Hughes, who's in the Hall of Fame. And I got another really good coach when I got to college was Tubby Smith, Orlando Tubby Smith. And so, my senior year, we did some great things there at the University of Tulsa. Made it to the first Sweet 16 ever, won conference, and I got MVC Player of the Year and everything.
Wow.
Was drafted by Cleveland, played with them through the preseason, then I played for 10 years over in Europe. After playing 10 years in Europe, I just love being around, basketball, being around sports. And I got my degree at University of Tulsa in business, but I wasn't ready to go into the corporate world. I just enjoyed, being around kids and nursing. I enjoyed the competition that went along with coaching and playing. So I decided to become a coach. Wow. Started out my coaching career over at North Crowley, your high school.
Okay. Shout out.
I was under Brackle for 4 years there.
What years about?
2004 to 2007.
Okay. Yeah. So you were there. It was just as I was leaving out.
Exactly. Yeah. So you probably knew some of the guys like Fox.
Yeah.
Fox was there.
Yeah. They were sophomores.
Yeah, there was young guys coming through.
Was it Parham, Fox?
Parham, yeah.
There was a few others that played football and basketball. That's how I knew some of those cats.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
they were young underclassmen when I was there.
Good guys. I enjoyed it, man. So I left there. My first head coaching job was at Arlington Heights. Wow. Third year there, we won district. We went to the regional quarterfinals. My fourth year there, we made it down to state. And
in 4 years, Coach?
In 4 years, man. They hadn't made it that far ever, but they hadn't won district since I want to say since I was born, 1970, 1971.
Wow,
so that was definitely a something that was good on my resume. So I left there, coached another 6 years there at Louisville High School, and decided to come over Crowley. I was Crowley for 6 years, and then I've got this role now here as athletic director.
Wow, Coach.
Athletic director, yeah.
Out of all of that, so you've been around the game for a while. So you've seen it change. You've seen the ebbs and flows. What are some of the things that you remember as an athlete that you were told, lessons, things like that, that your coaches kind of instilled that translate to how you show up today?
I think probably the biggest thing that I've learned being an athlete, and even now, as a coach and a father, is never let anybody outwork you. That was one of the things that Coach Hughes instilled in us. Never let anybody outwork you. So I take that in my job now. early rising, getting up here, and I'm staying late, you know. And in my role now, you don't have a set time. It's not like, okay, you come in at 8:30, you're done at 4:30. You got some Fridays, man. You're gonna come here before 6 a.m. and you're not gonna leave till after midnight. So it's one of those things where you got to continue to work hard. And so that's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned. You know, you learn camaraderie. You learn how to work well with others. Some people are not going to always bring their weight, and so you've got to kind of motivate them or push them, or you might have to, you know, add a little bit more to yours just to make up for theirs. And then you got some that you really appreciate because they're bringing their weight and they're bringing more, you know, and so you're very respectful, you know, giving them, you know, comments and commenting on how well they're doing and letting them know to keep up the good work.
That sounds like that encouragement, you know, as I hear you talk about that, I'm sure as an athletic director, assistant athletic director, you have a number of people that you that need your support.
Right.
And so when we're talking about that athlete, who are those individuals around that athlete that you kind of correspond, interact with?
Right. I think mostly the coaches.
Okay.
You know, the coaches would probably be the main one that you're actually going with, but it could be also, you know, a lot of times it's teachers, you know.
So,
you know,
as the assistant athletic director.
Assistant athletic director,
Really?
because trying to find ways to contact or connect with that, build a relationship with that player a lot of times. And the thing about me, I still know a lot of teachers on both sides. Over at North Crowley, some guys that are still there. When the time I was there, you know, it was what, 20-some years ago now. And, you know, I just recently, not too long, left Crowley High School. So a lot of the teachers that I know there. So just being able to try to find ways to influence kids in a positive way. So it could be parents. You know, a lot of the parents that are going on now, they're becoming grandparents now. But when I was coaching, when I first started, a lot of the parents were classmates of mine or people that I grew up with.
Wow.
Now they've become like grandparents. So a lot of times it's the grandparents. So it's not only the coaches that you're talking with, not only the teachers, but it's the people in the community that you're talking with about certain things. You know, they just, what we're doing here at Crowley, they're doing really, really big things. And just being able to have the community involved with that, that's something that's great to know.
You heard it. He said we're doing big things here in Crowley, and he meant that. I mean, in that every sense of the word. And I'm not just being biased because it's, you know, hometown, you know, the district I graduated from. But truly, if you see the landscape of how things are developing around here, it's amazing. We're in an amazing state of the art building that they've built. How long ago was this, Coach?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. And this building itself is a beautiful building. Let's talk a little bit about that because I think that's important.
Right.
Okay, so this building, the complex sits off of I-35 in Hemphill.
Right.
And then if we go north, what city is that?
If you go north, that's Fort Worth.
Okay.
That's Fort
And then
Worth.
down this way, south,
it's Crowley and Burleson.
all the way down through. So all of those teams and all of those programs that are trying to find those games to match up at, this is a beautiful complex to be at.
Right.
How do they get in contact with you as a coach? It's like, you know what, Coach?
Most of the times they can go through the website and get a hold of me, and this is kind of, it's getting to be one of those areas where when playoff time is coming, this is where mostly the football teams, the soccer teams are wanting to host their games at right here, you know. You got to wait because just within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be breaking ground on our indoor and outdoor track, which sits right beside the football stadium. They're going to share the same parking lot. And we're going to be the first district up here in the North Texas area that has an indoor track.
Right
You
here.
know, so
Right
we're looking
here.
forward to that, man. That's going to be great. And that indoor track, it can be broken down to have a basketball court. You can do volleyball on
What,
it.
Coach?
Yeah, you can have powerlifting meets. You can have concerts. You can do seminars and conferences. It's going to be great, man. I saw the video, the 3D video images of it a couple weeks ago. It's going to be amazing. Great time to be at Crowley ISD.
Man, you heard it first. Coach is sitting down with us. Again, this is I Coach Mental Health, and we are having a conversation about the things that surround the athletes, the people that support that athlete, because I think that circle of influence and that circle and that sphere is what helps that athlete show up as their best. Coach is giving some game right now. And so, Coach, let's jump right back into it, Coach.
Okay.
Coach Collier, what is something you see all of the development that's happening in this community right now? There's some amazing things. Like you said, it's a great time to be in Crowley.
Right.
What are some things that the community should know a little bit more that maybe you wish people would talk more about?
Right, right. I think, I mean, the community does a really good thing, a good job of coming out and supporting us, you know, and it's easy to support. I mean, our football team did a great job this year, and you can just see the support that they have. You can see that, but probably some of the things I wish the community just, whether you winning or losing, would like for them to still come out and attend certain games, you know, and I think it's important for the kids, you know. Another thing that's the community, you know, this, you know, not only is the community, maybe the parents or the people that are involved, everybody's not going to be a professional athlete, you know, but I feel like if some way that the community can kind of back those who just enjoy the sport, the competition that comes along with the sport.
Yeah.
That speaks more than anything else, you know. That speaks way more than anything else. So just knowing that, hey, every kid's not going to be a professional player, hey, support them, you know, but still come out and support them. So but for the most part, it's easy to follow when you win, but not when you do so well. And that's not always going to be the case. So a lot of times, you know, Crowley just been one of those places where they've always pretty much won. It's going to be some group or some sport that's really done really well each and every year. You know, basketball's for a long time over there at North Crowley and Crowley has always brought it. You know, now the football's picking it up. You know, I think, you know, soccer and softball, they're doing really good. I know soccer doing really good, and softball, Crowley back in the day, they was really good. So just trying to get everybody back into knowing that, hey, there's a spot for everybody, there's a sport for everybody. Just having the community, you know, full-heartedly just come out and support.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've recognized just being an alum from the school district and now just kind of sitting back and watching, not only is it beneficial for sports to have success at the high school level, but you're seeing it at the middle school and even younger levels.
Exactly.
You know, I'm seeing a lot of leagues pop up around here, and those leagues are helping develop those athletes. And I think starting that early is really important. Do you have any take on that starting early?
Yeah, I think so. Just trying to teach them the right way. You know, I think what's been happening right now in the media, what you see it all the time, is a lot of the spectators and parents, they're not showing good character when it comes to a lot of the games. If you go to AAU events or 7-on-7 events, or, you know, sometimes you have, you know, people getting into it. I don't think that's the correct way, but I do think, you know, like Guy said it the other day, there's never been a time I know in a lot of the sports that we have now where our athletes are so skilled, but I think there's never been a time right now where their character, you know, is at its worst, you know. And so if we could just pick it up on that character end of it, I like the fact that they're starting early. I think it's important to give kids something to do, but also teaching them those things when it comes with, you know, ethics and good sportsmanship and character.
He just gave us a plug. That's what we do here in Coach Mental Health, is we talk about the mental health and the psychology of the game. I think that what Coach is saying is important because, yes, you could be the most skilled athlete in the world, but if your character is flawed, somehow, some way, that is going to come back and is going to hurt you in some scenario, because all of you, what you see is that some of that is being propaganda in the media and things like that, but there is a side to that we have to address. And yes, it's okay to have developmental leagues. Yes, it's okay to have those things where you're winning, but at what cost and what else are you preparing those players for? That's what we like to talk about with personal development in that sense, Coach. So let me get to this point, Coach. You've been, I'm gonna go back just a little bit, because you've been in a number of different roles throughout your athletic career. First thing is, as a young coach, what were some things that you now, after being coaching for a couple of years, if you could talk to those young coaches, what were some things that you did as a young coach that you like, I had to grow up and mature from that?
Right. I think your first instinct is to coach like you were coached. You know, when I was in high school, I was coached pretty hard. You know, it got a little easier in college. You know, far as being coaching is concerned, and then when I got to professionally, you know, a lot of the things that worked in high school and college, they didn't work professionally because you're playing for contracts, and a lot of times the motivation was finance. I think it depends on your coach. You know, you're going to start out coaching the way that you were coached.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I know for me that was a tough time. But the kids, understanding the kids nowadays, they're not built for that type of coaching. And so what you have to do as a coach now is to come at them in a different way, motivate them in a different way that's really going to get their attention. That's really going to get them to do what you need them to do, you know. So you got to study. You got to build relationships with them. You know, that's probably one of the biggest things that, as a coach, that I learned in my later years. And I wasn't that rah-rah coach, bark in your face. I was more about building that relationship, finding ways to motivate them, talking to the parents, talking to other friends, just listening to them. Sometimes if you're just in the locker room and you just listen to them and be a fly on the wall, sometimes you can learn how to get at certain players, and because what works for one player doesn't work for the other player. And then again, you've got some of those players where, you know, they've still got some pretty tough parents, and you can rah-rah and you get on them to motivate them, and it won't bother them at all. So you've got to find a way to know your parents. You got to kind of study them. You got to pay attention to them. You know, that's kind of the key now for new coaches, to pay attention to the players, understanding what's going on, even when they're on the court, when they're sitting on the bench, keeping an eye out on them and just studying them a little bit more.
Yeah, Coach, huge. I heard relationship skills. That's what I heard. I heard that ideal of being self-aware, to be able to then be able to look at and identify things in an athlete that you can use as ways to have insight into the athlete. That's great stuff, Coach. All right, so as you were a young coach, do you feel like you did well with your own mental and emotional wellness?
I thought I did. You know, for me, just going out there practicing every day, that helped relieve a lot of stress. You know, a lot of times we have stress, we have mental stress. I think some of the stress that I had when I was an athlete, that I was a player, is probably a lot of the stuff that I put on myself.
Talk about that.
I took criticism very well. You know, a lot of kids don't take criticism very well, but I often took criticism. That really helped me out, that I was able to focus, because whatever somebody had to say bad about me, I could think of a lot of other stuff that I didn't do. You know, coach get on me about certain things, but I could see stuff on film that I didn't do. I should have done a better job on this and that, and the coach didn't even see it. But I know for a fact, so I was a harder critic on myself. But the things that exercising, taking time away, spiritually, you know, going to church.
Get into it.
You've got to find a way to get in touch with your inner spirit. And for me, it was going to church, it was praying. You know, I felt like God had always found favor in the things that I did. I mean, the success that I had, I knew it wasn't because of me, it was because of the people that he placed around me and the things that he, enabled me to do. High school, I was on a pretty good high school team, and the people that I had, it had nothing to do with but God, you know. Went off to college to play, and the people that he put around me, you know, I didn't really recruit those guys. It was just the right people that helped me get success, and it was because that was something that I prayed for. Wow. And because of that, I had inner peace, you know. What do I do now for stuff like that? You know, I still am involved in church. I still I pray a lot. I still study the Bible, you know, but I play a lot of golf now too.
Okay.
and so sometimes you've got to have a way to kind of get away from everything, you know. And the job that I had now is probably more demanding, because, you know, I'll get calls at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. Whereas if I was a basketball coach, I wouldn't get 6 o'clock calls in the morning about certain things, because it's not only just that sport now, it's a lot of different sports. Yeah. And so, I mean, it could be at midnight, you're going to get calls about another sport. And so you've got to try to find a way to kind of get away while you can. You do some fishing. I hang out with my family members a lot of times, my cousins and my uncles, and we play dominoes. And so those are the ways that I kind of get away, back up from what we got to do, relieve some stress, and be able to refill my tank, and get ready to go again on Monday.
Huge. Again, gems. Coach is sharing his lived experiences with what he does now, and also how he's approached different seasons of his life. I want to go one more flashback. You said you played in a professional league. Were you overseas?
Yes, I was overseas.
Where did you play at? What country?
The countries that I predominantly played for was Belgium, France, Italy, and Germany. It was those 4 countries. But when you're over there, you play what's got called your league in each country. So when I was in France, most of my games were there in France. But at the beginning of the year, you're eligible for certain cups. It depends on how you finished the year before. And it's almost like if you finish first in your league, you'll play a tournament with other first place countries, first team countries.
Okay.
And if you were second, you play against a lot of other second team countries. So you got to play in areas like Russia, Moscow, played in Ukraine. You'll go down and play in Turkey, Israel, play in Greece. You got a chance to play in certain countries like Bosnia. It was right after the war, and you see certain things. So you got to play in a lot of different countries, even though you predominantly played your games in one country, but you played in other countries as well.
2 points to that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna follow that up with another. 2 things that I heard was this ideal of basketball can be a way for you to see the world.
Right.
I think that's incredible to say. Second thing I heard was there were a lot of different places that you went, Coach, that were probably different than the United States. What did you see and experience over there that you were like, man, that's different? And then how did you cope with being in those different settings and surroundings?
Well, your first thing that you had to deal with was the language, the communication. The language was a lot different. I want to say out of all the countries that I played for, probably Germany and Belgium, they spoke mostly English. Wherever you go, somebody spoke English for you. Mostly all the coaches and my teammates spoke English because English was so important for the people over there. So they learned it in school. It's like where we normally would learn, I guess, Spanish or French. Mostly all of them over there had to have some type of English class. Now, certain countries they took their language a little bit more prideful, like France. France, they didn't speak much English over there, but a lot of them could, but they wouldn't, just because of pride thing. And then you went to Italy. It was one of those other countries where they mostly spoke Italian. And it depends on where you were. But that was probably the biggest difference right there, the language barrier. Then you got your culture. Your culture is a lot different because just the way they see certain things, far as the race is concerned, there's not a lot of difference or racism over there. You're a black man, you go in the store, ain't nobody gonna watch him. Some of the things that we kind of grow accustomed to seeing over here, that's not really over there. And sexuality, you'll see stuff done on billboards. Maybe you see a nude billboard advertisement, where over here that's taboo. Ain't no way you're gonna show a person nude on a billboard for a skin cream advertisement.
Right.
And so those things were different over there. I want to say the way they eat, they got smaller portions of everything. Where over here you got free refills, but over there they didn't have free bread. It's been a while. I don't know about now, but back then everything was smaller. You didn't have free refills. Not a lot of fried foods. Most of the foods are grilled or broiled or baked, and so everybody walked pretty much everywhere. And so there's a big transit system when it comes to buses and trains and so either you're on a bus, meaning that you got to at least walk to the bus stop. You're on a train, you got to at least walk to the train station, So people were a little bit more healthier because they're more active, more active than they are over here.
Yeah.
Those are probably the biggest difference, But as far as basketball's concerned, the sporting concerned, I think they were more. Um, uh, they were more concerned with skill development, whereas we was a little bit more showtimey. They're gonna want everybody learned everything, and that was probably the first. And I think that's kind of what we've grown to now. And as a basketball player, when I was growing up, if you was a big guy, you stand down low. You're gonna work on some stuff around the basket. That's it. But over there, their big guys was learning ball handling moves and shooting just like guards, and so it was. And I think they still do. I know they still do. And what we've been doing here is that we've kind of adopted a lot of that philosophy over here with our players. Where our big guys now, they work on the same things that guards work on. The guards work on the same things that big guys work on.
That's a great insight. I'm reminded of seeing the 2004, 2008, 2012 Olympics. And if I remember correctly, there was a time in there where the USA basketball team, national team, didn't win.
They did.
And I think that started to be like, wait a second, what's going on in these other countries that they've caught up to the talent level? It wasn't necessarily they've caught up to the talent. In some ways they have, but it's more so that skill development where you get chemistry and you get teams that have that chemistry and that skill development. Yeah, they're going to give you a run for your money when you've only played together for 3 weeks as a team.
Right.
And so I think what Coach is pointing to is what today's NBA looks like. It started back in that ideal of let's start to develop every skill we can with every player. So no matter what position they play, they could play the 4, they could play the 1, they could play the 2. Yeah. I mean, you see it today. I mean, there's a guy out up north somewhere. I think it's in Milwaukee. That's a pretty legit player, and that dude is 6'11".
Yeah.
And he has ball handling skills like. So I'm not gonna, I don't want no smoke about, any advertisements and stuff, but I'm gonna keep it there. Coach, let's talk about this. As a father, how did you balance being in the roles and supporting the kids and the families that you've been in, but you got your own family, you got your own kids that you have to worry about.
Right. Well, I commend a lot to my girls. I've got 3 daughters.
Wow.
I've got 3 daughters and 3 granddaughters, and I just found out, I guess about 6 months ago now, that my middle daughter's gonna finally have a boy. So I was in the house with nothing but girls, but they were really cool with it. They were really good with it. They were tough, and they understood the role. And one of the things that I tried to do is whenever I came home, I tried to put the whistle away, the clipboard away, and become a dad, and be there for them, help them with the homework, took them here, took them there, talked to them about the day and stuff like that. I tried to give as much of my time as possible, but being an athlete, how much your coach is always up at the school, and you a lot of your time that would kind of be devoted to them, kind of have to go to other kids, and so, but they were always good about it, man. They were understanding about it, and I talk to them now. I got great relationships with all my daughters, and they love me just as much. They don't feel like they had any less of a father because I wasn't there at certain times or like that. And they were good kids too, really, really good kids, and I thank God for that. I really do.
No, for real.
I thank God for that. But
one girl dad to the next. I feel you.
Yeah, but they were strong girls, and they understood. They didn't need me always, and sometimes they probably thankful that I wasn't around as much. You know how kids are, but for the most part, but they were great. I enjoy being their dads. I enjoy it now.
That's awesome, Coach. Last thing as we start to land this plane is just this ideal of us just talking about in general, as you talk to coaches, as you talk about your experiences. I know you've been in a number of different roles. Talk to the coach that may be inspired by your story and other stories, and maybe that athlete that's like, "Ooh, I might be thinking about going in that direction as a profession." What are some things they should be considering? Some things that can be doing to help them put themselves in the best position to be successful at this role?
Right. I think, and it's kind of like cliche when it comes to athletic directors and stuff, is your why. Your why. Why are you doing this? For me, it's got to be more than the money. It's definitely more than the money because they don't pay us enough to do what we're doing. But it's got to be for the love of of raising young adults, getting them to become productive citizens in our society. Teaching them. I know I only coach boys, but my focus was, my enjoyment was to try to raise them to be young men. Most of the kids that I coached throughout my career were minorities. And a lot of times in the minorities, we don't have that father figure to lean on. I was very fortunate to have a really good father, but my father passed away when I was a sophomore in high school. And I just fortunate enough to have really good uncles, and my older brother, who's 7 years older than I am, he was my brother, but he was sort of like a father figure to me. And so, but I had really good coaches in high school. I had really good coaches in college. And so being able to kind of use them as my mentor and model those out there. And so I try to do the same thing. And your why as a coach is you're trying to inspire young adults to become productive adults in society. Whether it be a woman or a man, you want the young ladies to become, productive young ladies and have a sense of ethics and morals and hard work and discipline, understanding how to coexist, even though that person on your side may not be bringing his weight during this time, or it could be that, hey, you don't fully get along. And you're going to have to learn to coexist with your workers a lot of times. There's going to be some people that you really don't care for, but you've got to work with. And I think as coaches, you should be able to teach the players that type of things to become, better citizens in society.
So, Coach, thank you for giving some insight on just what you do and how you show up every day. Like I said, I think this is an amazing platform to showcase that there are coaches, there are athletic directors, assistant athletic directors, teachers, parents. There is a community of people that influence that athlete for good or for bad, for productivity or not so productivity. So I think it's important to share that. Any final remarks, Coach, that you have about anything that's going on with Crowley ISD that you want the people to know about, or anything just in general that you would leave as final remarks?
I just say, it commends to you, man. You're a product of Crowley ISD. You're out here doing something positive. Man, you're helping the community. So that's great. You always you always hear people say, well, I want to go back and help where I came from. And so I just want to commend you for doing what you do, man.
I appreciate
that. You've been a blessing to a lot of people out here and doing a great job.
Man, that means a lot.
And I just want to say thank you for having me on your format, man, and just sitting on my what they call it, the soapbox, and being able to discuss and talk with you a little bit about what I do. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me.
Yes,
really
man, that means a lot. Thank you, God. Glory to God. Mm-hmm. Thank you for saying that. I think that's important to recognize that it's not, in my opinion, a soapbox. I think you're giving game, man. I think this is something that we are missing in our society as it relates to having wisdom passed down. And for someone who you can expedite your journey by listening to others who have lived through that journey and said, hey, there's a pitfall over there. Make sure you turn right instead of left. All of those things are important that I think that you can glean from in some of these conversations. So athletes, sit down with your coaches. Coaches, sit down with your mentors. I think everyone should have a mentor. Yeah. Coach Collier said he's been in the game. He said 71 was since you was born. Yeah. Coach Collier been over a couple of years older than I am. So just listening to his wisdom is giving me something, an insight as well. So I think that's important. Please check us out. We are going to post our podcast here during the month of May, during Mental Health Awareness Month, where we're just talking about a number of things that athletes need to know and the people that are around them need to know. This platform is geared toward helping bring to light those conversations and those perspectives. This is Coach Gaffney, aka Coach Mental Health, and we are signing off. always remember that it's a great day to be better. Have a blessed day.